Chapter 1. The curtain had barely closed, but the roar of applause still filled the air, vibrating through the walls of the newly restored Ed Sullivan Theater. Zane sat in his dressing room, heart racing, taking in the electric energy of a night that felt like the dawn of something huge. Just moments ago, he'd been on that stage. Legends had stood on the same ground. Sinatra, with his velvet voice and cool gaze, had charmed crowds here. Elvis had electrified the room with a single shake of his hips. The Beatles unleashed pure mania in their American debut. Judy Garland had captivated with her trembling, soaring notes. And Ella Fitzgerald had wrapped the audience in her smoky warmth. Every star who'd ever held a mic here seemed to whisper in his ear, urging him forward, urging him to seize this moment and make it his. It was a stage steeped in history, in glamour, in a legacy that cast its shadow over every performer lucky enough to stand there. He was only in the chorus, but that didn't matter. Sharing the stage tonight with icons like Cheetah Rivera, Gwen Verdon, and Tyne Daly was like a rite of passage, a chance to breathe in the history of Broadway, feel the pulse of the past and the present collide. For Zane, it was like fate giving him a glimpse of his future. The theater itself was dazzling, walls freshly painted, ornate chandeliers catching the light, and David Niles's cutting-edge high-definition technology bringing a modern edge to the classic space. Tonight, the Ed Sullivan Theater was alive, reborn, humming with the vibrancy of stars past and present. And here he was, just a boy from a California valley, standing on the edge of all he'd ever dreamed of. Tonight was the grand reopening, a one-night-only charity performance to showcase the theater's renovation and unveil David Niles's groundbreaking high-definition screens, which loomed across the stage like windows to other worlds. It was the sort of event that could launch careers, and he'd fought to be here, to stand on his own 2 feet without leaning on his family's empire. Tonight, he wasn't Russo Vino's youngest son. He was Zane, a performer about to give Broadway everything he had. The guest list was packed with luminaries, celebrities, socialites, moguls, A-list actors, directors, and the types of powerful people who made careers happen with a single phone call. He imagined the glittering crowds just beyond the curtains, the creme de la creme, all eyes on him. Well, not just him, but it felt that way. Earlier, before he got on stage, Zane had called his mother, Sophia. She was back in California at Villa Russo, celebrating her birthday. He knew his family would be proud, but tonight he wanted this for himself. The applause, the nerves, the thrill of the stage, all of it was his, without the weight of their expectations. Tomorrow, he thought. He would tell them tomorrow. Her voice was warm and familiar when she answered. "Happy birthday, Mama," he said, smiling softly into the phone. "Zenobio!" Her laughter was like music, full of surprise and joy. "You remembered! Oh, my darling boy, how I miss you!" "I miss you too," he murmured. He wanted to tell her everything, to say he was standing in Sinatra's shadow, in Elvis's, under the same lights where Judy and Ella once stood. But he held back, savoring the quiet thrill of the secret. "I'm just calling to wish you a happy birthday, Mama," he said, feeling the warmth of her love steady him. When he hung up, he took one last look around the dressing room, a sanctuary of quiet before the storm of the stage. But even as he reveled in the triumph of the evening, there was a flicker of unease, lingering, just at the edges. He thought of the recording session with Stephen Blumberg earlier, of Stephen's question still echoing in his mind. "So, did you finally cut ties with Sir Earl?" Zane had sidestepped the question, leaving Stephen with a vague answer as he'd walked out of the studio and into the night, a part of him refusing to confront the unresolved tension with Sir Earl Toone. It was a complicated mess, one that he wasn't ready to untangle, especially tonight. He tried to shake it off, telling himself he'd deal with it later. For now, he had this: Broadway, the applause, the feeling of something grand and unstoppable in his veins. And if Sir Earl had a problem with the way he was handling things, Well, that bridge would be crossed in due time. He stood, taking a last look around the dressing room, eyes grazing over the bouquets of flowers, the congratulatory notes from his castmates, the camaraderie that came with a shared triumph. But as he stepped out onto the cool night air, heading towards his East Village apartment, reality began to seep back in. The high of the night was fading, leaving behind a cocktail of exhaustion, pride, and a flicker of anxiety. The streets were quieter now, city lights reflecting in puddles from a recent rain, casting everything in a moody glow. Zane felt a strange mix of emotions, like he was standing on the precipice of something grand but shadowed by an approaching storm. He knew he'd have to face it. Sir Earl, the deal, the career risks. But for tonight, just for tonight, he let the success of his Broadway debut carry him home. He allowed himself to sink into the euphoria of the moment, into the knowledge that, however fleeting, he'd shared a piece of history with the giants. The shadows would come, he knew that, but tonight, he held on to the light.